How long have you been trying to be happy, satisfied, fully content? 20 years? 30 years? Perhaps even more? Ever since you can remember, isn't that what you've been trying to do? To feel happy, to be fully satisfied. But are you happy? Are you fully content? Or are you still trying to be happy? I'm more certain that all of you are still in search of that happiness. But have you ever wondered, why is it that you can't feel fully content even though you have everything that you desire, everything that you need? Why is it that you are not yet fully content? What is this void that you feel within that never goes away? Let's try to find out why you are not that happy. Why is it that you are a little bit short of what you are trying to find? Ladies and gentlemen, just think about this situation. Imagine you are going into a cafe with an intention to buy a piece of cake and a pie. And when you are at the cashier paying your bill, all of a sudden you see a freshly baked puff pastries, which are your favorites. You're almost done with paying your bill, but when you return, when you walk out from that cafe, even though you have what you initially walked in to buy, what about the puff pastries that you saw? Isn't that thought of puff pastries lingers through your mind over and over again? Even when you are eating the piece of cake that you initially wanted to buy, don't you wish, oh, what if I could buy those puff pastries also? And don't you think that you are definitely going to buy those things the next time you visit that cafe? See, it's never enough. Even though you have what you initially planned, when you see something else, now the mind wants the next best thing. It's never enough. It has never been, and it will never. Until you understand how this mind works. Just think about this. Let's assume that you want to eat a piece of cake. Okay? How does that happen? What happens first? A thought arises, right? Now, just imagine that you're at work or at home. All of a sudden, a thought arises, right? So a thought arises and passes away. What happens next? Let's assume that you see that cake. How does that happen? Another chitta arises and passes away, right? And seeing happens. Another chitta arises and passes away. And what about when tasting happens? Let's assume that now you are eating that cake. Another chitta arises and passes away. But what about this? When you experience the taste of that cake, the initial thought of wanting to have a cake is long gone. you can never satisfy this thought because it's just a fleeting moment, nothing more than that. By the time you have that piece of cake, this thought is long gone, and you can never satisfy this desire. This is why you can never satisfy yourself. Because even though you think that you exist, that is a mere sense of existence. All that happens is millions of chittas arises and passes away when causes get aligned. The initial thought of having something can never be satisfied because by the time you have it, that thought is not even there. And what happens? After a few more days, this thought arises again. And same urge, same need arises in the mind. And then you try to satisfy that, but by the time you satisfy it, this is long gone. This is why you can never satisfy yourself. Think about going on a trip. Haven't this happened to you? You pick a destination. Most of the time, it's because of these pictures that you see, maybe on internet, Instagram, Facebook. When you see a beautiful destination, what do? You plan a trip, right? You earn more money, you save some more bucks, and then you plan a trip. When you go that trip and when you return, when you see another destination, what happens? Don't you feel the same urge of visiting that destination also? Why is it? Because wanting to see beautiful places is something that you can never fulfill because that is just a mere thought. Imagine number of coffees that you've had. Maybe a couple of hundreds, right? Maybe you might take a cup of coffee every morning. But what about when that thought arises tomorrow? The same urge will happen again. Even though you have had hundreds of coffees, when the next thought arises of wanting to have a cup of coffee, you will not be able to resist it. You will go and get another cup of coffee. And the life will continue, trying to fulfill a thought, a fleeting moment. Ladies and gentlemen, if you understand that you are nothing more than a bunch of chittas arising and passing away, you will realize that satisfying these thoughts is impossible. You can never do that. If you have a view that a certain flavor of coffee is pleasurable, no matter how many cups of coffees you have, you would never feel satisfied because it's a thought that arises in the mind. And whenever that thought arises in the mind, you will feel the same urge, same vexation. But by the time you taste that coffee, this thought is long gone. So if you understand how this mind works, you will realize that trying to satisfy these chittas is like chasing a rainbow, something that you can never do. That is when you will stop searching for happiness. When you understand that you can never satisfy these thoughts that arises and passes away, when you understand that they are just mere thoughts that arise because of the wheels that you have, you will stop trying to satisfy these thoughts. That is when you will truly experience happiness. Until we meet next time, try and experience this. When you feel that urge to get that next cup of coffee, buy it. And while you take it, while you drink it, try and reflect what you are going to do tomorrow when the same thought arises. The same thing, you are going to go back to that cafe and buy another cup of coffee. What are you going to do when the same thought of having that cup of coffee arises next week? Going to that cafe and buying that coffee. When are you going to stop? When are you going to put a full stop? That is when you realize that wanting to have a cup of coffee is not more than a fleeting thought. When you understand that by giving it what it wants, you can never feel satisfied, you will stop doing so. You will stop searching for happiness and you will be happy. And then, when you get that thought, when you feel that need of buying that coffee, you would not do that. Instead, you will realize and you will think that doing that is of no use. Try and experience these things. So until we meet next time, I hope when these thoughts arises in your mind, making you vex to get things, you'll stop doing so and contemplate and think that this thought is something that you can never satisfy.